What's up, guys? It's Andrew, and I'm here on Joe Nubo Football, ready to recap what has been the craziest NFL offseason in recent history. Now, this offseason has been really about the quarterback pool. Whether it's through free agency or through the draft, NFL teams are ready to put themselves into Super Bowl contention by getting their quarterback of the future. Starting off with probably the most talked about guy in the quarterback pool, Kirk Cousins. Now, of course, he had been franchise tagged the last 2 years in Washington, and he has finally found a long-term home with some long-term money. And Minnesota has decided to part ways with their three previous quarterbacks in Case Keenum, Sam Bradford, and Teddy Bridgewater, and they have decided to sign Kirk Cousins to a 3-year, $84 million deal. Supposedly, that $84 million is all guaranteed. Now, with the stellar defense in Minnesota, including two dynamic offensive weapons in Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, the Vikings may have punched their ticket to the big game by signing Kirk Cousins this offseason. And speaking of Minnesota, the quarterbacks... Speaking of Minnesota... Speaking of Minnesota quarterbacks, the man that led them to the NFC Championship game, Speaking of Minnesota quarterbacks, the man that led them to the NFC Championship game, Case Keenum, has found a new home in the Mile High City. Yes, the Denver Broncos have signed Case Keenum to a 2-year, $36 million deal. Now, Denver seemed to be another one of those teams that, along with getting a solid quarterback and maybe some few pieces in the draft, they could very well be ready to... Speaking of Minnesota quarterbacks, the man that led them to the NFC Championship game, Case Keenum, has found a new home in the Mile High City. The Denver Broncos have signed Case Keenum to a 2-year, $36 million deal. And Denver was also one of those teams who, along with getting a solid quarterback and some different pieces in the draft, they could very well be in playoff contention. And now getting Case Keenum, it looks like they may be ready to take over. And now with getting Case Keenum, they may finally be ready to take over that AFC West division. On to the next big quarterback name. Drew Brees has decided to bore us all to death by re-signing with the Saints. Now, there was a lot of speculation whether or not Drew Brees would pull a Kevin Durant and move on from the city and the team that loved him through thick and thin. But alas, Drew Brees has decided to show us once again that he is a true company guy by re-signing with the team that he led to a Super Bowl victory just 8 years ago. Another quarterback on the move from Minnesota, Sam Bradford, a.k.a. the John Dillinger of the NFL, has once again robbed another owner of some fat stacks by signing with Arizona on a 1-year, $20 million deal. Now, so far in Bradford's 10-year career, he's got a losing record. However, he's made upwards of $130 million collectively throughout the years. Good for you, Sam Bradford. Now, please, for the love of God, go get you some new bionicle knees. Now let's move on from quarterbacks real quick, and let's talk about Jimmy Graham. Yes, the once highly coveted New Orleans tight end, who had some difficulties finding his true role in Seattle after being traded from the Saints, has now signed with the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers finally has a legitimate threat to get the ball to, and it'll be interesting to see if we can see the other Jimmy G that we got back dunking in the end zone. That was terrible. Aaron Rodgers finally has a legit threat to get the ball to, and it'll be interesting to see if the other Jimmy G can get back to his dunking in the end zone days that we saw in the Superdome. Let's do that one more time. Aaron Rodgers finally has another legitimate threat to get the ball to, and it'll be interesting to see if Jimmy Graham can get... Aaron Rodgers finally has another legitimate threat to get the ball to, and it'll be interesting to see if Jimmy Graham can get back to his dunking in the end zone days that we saw in the Superdome. Now, moving on to defense, the hero of Super Bowl 49, Malcolm Butler, is moving on from his tumultuous relationship in New England to play in Tennessee. Yes, the man who saved Tom Brady's ass. Oh my God, we'll fuck it up. Now moving on to defense, the hero of Super Bowl 49, Malcolm Butler is moving on from his tumultuous relationship in New England to play in Tennessee. Yes, the man who saved Tom Brady's ass with that tremendous pick in the Super Bowl has signed a 5-year deal with the Titans, supposedly worth upwards of $60 million. Now, moving on to another... Sorry, Jose. Sorry you have to edit this much shit, Jose. This is my first time doing it. Relax, bro. Danny Amendola has decided to take his talents to South Beach to play for the Dolphins. One of Brady's most clutch receivers in the playoffs has decided to move on to play for the Miami Dolphins. Now, supposedly there is a quarterback somewhere in Miami ready to get the ball to Amendola. And if you've seen this quarterback, which I don't think anybody has, please let Danny Amendola know at 1-800-FIND-ME-A-QUARTERBACK, because he's got no idea where those touchdowns are going to come from.